He's going to run PowerPoint like that. This line. Are we recording? Yes. You can make a formal start. Okay, here we go. That's my makeshift gavel. Good afternoon, everyone. The meeting of the South San Antonio Independent School District Budget Committee will now come to order. Today is Thursday, June 11th, and the time is 4:01 p.m.
I think your microphone is working, but
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, but coming through his products.
Sorry.
Robert. Do you hear anything, Kevin? Do you hear? You can hear me? I can't hear anybody.
There's a set right here. Right.
No, I can't hear nothing.
I'm sorry, the second plate was having the same issue. Let me disconnect my disconnect and can you hear me through mine?
No.
It's a surface issue.
Do we need these?
Only? Yeah, he's not here. Well, we can.
Roll call. Yeah.
You feel like the Verizon guy here? I hear him.
Didn't he go to swear? He was happy. You know, I got bought out, so I was
Then he got busted for marijuana.
How do you want to come do it?
No, I can't hear anybody.
Let's see.
Test, test.
There, I can hear now. I heard Kevin.
Form on this little guy.
Yeah.
I had not going to meeting, that was not allowed.
Your mic is turned off.
You're right, all right.
Because your mic's not on.
Can you hear me now?
I can now. No. No.
You want to try that little Chromebook?
hear Scott.
That's because I'm muted, ma'am.
Okay.
Like I'm clicking.
Can everybody hear me now?
Okay. There we go.
Okay, folks, for those who are joining, give us a few more minutes here. We're trying to work through some connectivity issues.
All I did was down was are we all set? Everybody good?
Okay, let's try this again. Good afternoon, everyone. The South San Antonio Independent School District Budget Committee meeting will now come to order. Today is Thursday, June 11th, and the time is 4:07. And I can go ahead and conduct roll call for the record here. Okay, Michelle?
Mr. Gilbert Rodriguez,
Present.
Mr. Kevin Roscoe,
Present.
Mrs. Connie Prado.
Present.
Thank you, Michelle. If we can all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, the Texas Pledge, prayer, and our call to action.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Texas Pledge, honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Please bow your head in prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we are meeting here today to continue working for our students and our families. Give us the guidance to make the best decisions for our community. Please watch over us and keep us safe and healthy so we may begin. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Call to action. All students enabling a successful education experience, empowering them to make decisions on enriching their lives and the future they create.
Thank you, Ms. Collier. The first item on the agenda will be our citizens to be heard. Mr. Roscoe.
Allow me
Thank you,
1 minute
Michelle.
to make sure.
If we can all please stand for the pledge of allegiance.
There are no citizens to be heard at this time.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you, Ms. Roscoe. The chair recognizing that there are no citizens to be heard. The next item on the agenda is our discussion and possible action. Item number 1. Actually, without objection, committee members, I'd like to propose a change of order here. What I'd like to do is move the 2019-2020 budget discussion ahead of the 2020-21 budget discussion. Hearing no objections. So the first item we will proceed is with the 2019-2020 budget discussion. Dr. Quick.
Good afternoon. I appreciate the opportunity to visit regarding the 2019-2020 budget. I know we spent considerable time in our last couple of meetings on balances and whatnot, trying to trend that data. We stepped away from that a little bit between the meeting that we had on the 4th, I believe it was. So I wanted to update you on some of the other things that we have going on right now. We have suspended purchasing within the district, which is normal for a procurement timeline. You know, we have to give things a chance to settle And if we were July 1 fiscal year, then obviously we would be done for the remainder of the year and could finish out and go into audit. But because we're a September 1 school district, we'll actually be getting staff and students back prior to the end of this budget cycle. So once we process everything through, get caught up, then we will then open the purchasing process back up for those last minute expenditures. And that's been our practice, long-standing. We don't want everybody ordering everything that will come in during the summer, and we've got staff that are gone and they're not able to receive it. So we are in a cooling off period, if you will, right now, to give us a chance to catch our breath, give the procurement staff a chance to catch up and process the things that are in the works, and then we will reset and then pick up again as we move into the beginning of the school year. So we have suspended purchasing, however, procurement will resume. Our ADA numbers will continue to shift related to our increased understanding of COVID-19 provisions. I guess it was a couple of committee meetings ago that we talked about the state's method for using the first 4-6 weeks data and then using an index of the 5th and 6th weeks data from a prior year. It's very similar to that. There are a couple of nuances. I briefed y'all at the last budget committee meeting that we would be getting training all the way up until the time of the meeting, and we actually did that today. We had staff had a 2.5-hour conference call with Corey Green from TEA. I know Mr. Abundes was on the call. Also, Mary Helen Flores was on the call, and they briefed me on what they had heard during the call. Unfortunately, there's part 2 of that call that will continue tomorrow, so we'll just keep moving along. I don't foresee any major changes with relation to our calculation of ADA. The comp ed numbers are going to impact our CARES funding, and I'll talk about that more when we get to that portion of the presentation. Our tax collections, we had noted that we were a little bit behind in our tax collections. If you look at a year-to-date collection rate, which you will see on the regular financials, we do have some taxpayers in Bexar County that have made an agreement with Bexar County to make semi-annual payments, and therefore that other set of payments are due in June. We would look back at the trend of data from years past, and I was a little concerned that our collections were lagging, but they always come to bear in June. So we feel good about that, but that's something that we'll continue to keep you abreast of. And then there's a budget amendment that's needed for some functional transfers. We'll go more into depth in that, as there is an actual line item for that on the agenda. But I want you to know that the amendment that we'll ask for, we'll give you the reasons that we are needing that amendment. But I'll go ahead and tell you in advance, it's budget neutral. It's transfers within. It's not an amendment from anything such as fund balance or additional recognized revenue. It's a budget neutral amendment that we will move in. So obviously there is a lot that we will get into as it relates to the 2021 budget, but I always want to we'll want to keep you abreast of what's going on as we close the year out. So even though that's not where the lion's share of our work is right now, we'll try to give you an update, because I think it's important that we keep an eye on the present, an eye on the future, and also an eye on the past. So we'll always try to do that. Be happy to answer any questions that you might have regarding our 2019-2020 considerations at this point. Happy to update you wherever I can.
Mr. Paul, regarding budget assumptions for 19-20, 5 months ago, budget assumption for revenues on total.
You're muted.
Okay. How about that? I have an IT person next to Chairman IT, all purpose. So my question was about 19-20 budget assumptions with respect to tax collections.
Yes, and we should be on the money as far as our tax collections. We did have an amendment for our our state revenue that we processed a couple couple of months ago. I'm sure you will have seen that, but we did not change our estimation on local tax collections. And although districts do not always recognize the immediate impact of a downgraded expectation of revenue, that was something that the board chose to do based on staff recommendations to lower that revenue. And that kind of started creating a little bit of a disparity between our expected revenue. We have amended the expenditure budget several times. So I think everything is trending exactly the way that the board has desired for that to do. So we're in good shape.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Dr. Puig. Committee members, are there any questions respective to the 2019-2020 budget considerations?
No questions?
No questions?
And
we will move on to the next item, which is the 2020-21 budget discussion. Dr. Puig?
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Rodriguez. Looking at 2021, we're excited. There's an opportunity here to really take a different approach that the district is considering, and we'll get into that. But before we dive into that new approach to budgeting, there's some specifics here that I know that have been touched on previously, and Mr. Baum wants to highlight those first.
Yes, sir. We continue to refine our revenue projection. We know that the most critical element to our revenue, and it's the money is not why we exist. Obviously, the students are why we exist, but that is the largest variable in our funding formula. And we've talked about our student trend in the past. And in fact, when Dr. Puig met with district leadership today, specifically the principals, he showed some trend data that I think we're all familiar with, that our student enrollment has trended down. We know where the levers are. We know what our challenges are ahead of us. It's a little bit different here. Obviously, we can't just we can't look at that trend line because COVID-19 has brought on a complete different set of circumstances. So I know Dr. Sendejo, Mrs. Sendejo, my apologies, Sendejo, and her team have done a great job of keeping up with the early enrollers at our campuses, and I know that she has apprised the board of that as we have gone along. So we're going to remain vigilant and watch that because it is absolutely critical. We know that we can't teach our kiddos unless they're in our seats or in an alternative learning environment, such as what we went through in the spring. But it's critical from a funding standpoint that we have them either in the seat or in an alternative learning environment. So we have talked about tax collections in the upcoming year and some potential variances there. Our tax values have already been set. They were set in January. But we know that people are going to struggle financially, and there could be some issues with tax collection. So as we start to sharpen and refine our revenue projection for the coming year, I'll give you some different scenarios. What happens if we're at 90%? What happens if we're at 70%? So we'll want to monitor that, and it's kind of a double vision situation right now. Everything is moving, but the closer we get to adoption, things will really start to crystallize, and we'll be able to place a great budget in place. So student enrollment is critical. Tax collections will be impactful. COVID-19 impact, we know the impact that it had on us during the spring, on our students and our families. We'll want to be super vigilant as we move into the fall and know where those kids are and get them into our system. We've had some great staffing discussion within the district. I know at our last meeting, we spent a considerable amount of time going through all of the elementary scenarios and took a campus by campus approach. Just minutes before this meeting, Ms. Orozco and Ms. DeLeon, we met with their teams and are working through the secondary models. There's great discussion that's going on. There's going to be some great opportunities. I appreciated the challenge that Dr. Puig issued earlier as far as taking an even deeper dive than we were looking in a zero-based approach. We'll talk more about that in a bit, but I think everybody understands the necessity that we do that, and there will be recommendations forthcoming as it relates to staffing.
So next time is zero-based budgeting. Let's dive into just the overall concept. Okay, so before we get into the details, I'm sorry, once again.
Well, first,
my first meeting.
Well, first, Dr. Quigg, without objection, if I can afford the committee members to ask some questions on the items that have been covered to this point, while they're still, Okay. I just actually have a comment on the student enrollment. Definitely something that's been identified as a trend and that we need to keep our eye on. But I'll tell you what, I haven't seen the level of effort that Ms. Sendejo has been implementing over the course of, I don't know, it's been a handful of weeks now from my perspective, but seeing the proactiveness that she's taking on going out there and trying to get our kids, our current enrollment, let's get those back, and then let's see how we can attack increase in enrollment, which I've been very vocal in saying that that's something that we've been complacent about for far too long. And I'm glad that we're attacking that, because certainly you're right, Mr. Baum, it is critical. It's why we're here. So I just want to applaud those efforts today. It's everywhere. So I want to thank Ms. Sendejo for that initiative and for Dr. Quigg's support in that, because that is why we're here. So phenomenal efforts today. Thank you very much.
If I may add to that, Chairman.
Yes, sir.
It has been extraordinary to see projections early on from efforts from the Save Your Seat campaign. It is encouraging. And I know we're going to use some of those projections as we build various scenarios for revenue projections. That being said, if we dive into zero-based budgeting, it is a fiscal strategy. And the best part of this strategy is we all have done foundational work already. A lot of the foundational work has been done. So when we look at zero-based budgeting, just in a lot of sense, we're going to drill down and analyze every expenditure, strip it down to zero base, at the base level, and then build up every single expenditure systematically. It's been a long time, Mrs. Bravo. Have we done zero based in your? Oh, so it's a historic first, fair to say. But the reason it's so urgent right now, given the fiscal challenges that are before us, it is uber critical. Something critical we're in front of that we take this approach, and it will be intense. But again, the foundation's been laid by this committee and team and administration. That's exciting. And so we are charged with this, with starting the zero-based budget approach Sunday at 9:30 a.m. Mr. Baum. Sure. And we're going to get after it, because we owe it to our taxpayers to show that we've exhausted every single approach to ensure we're putting a responsible budget together. And that being said, it is taking the limited resources we have now, and will be forthcoming, and putting it through the systems to ensure that we are outperforming the competition. That is it in a nutshell. So with that, let's dive into some of those specifics, Mr. Baum.
Sure, absolutely. So just broadly speaking, to expand on what Dr. Puig mentioned, zero-based budgeting is a method of budgeting in which all anticipated expenditures must be justified, and not just at a point in time, but each and every time you enter into a new budget cycle. It is taxing to go through that. But when you're dealing with the amount of money and the limited money that we have, I think it's absolutely the answer. So it starts from a zero base, and each and every function and object is analyzed for needs and cost. We do have the foundation in place in the form of our Plan for Learning platform, which is what our campuses use for their campus improvement plan. And everybody that uses Plan for Learning, they always get the campus improvement plan piece done. But there, you can delve into that one layer deeper and look at the module that ties your expenditures to the actual strategies that you've identified for your campuses. So that platform is certainly there, and it'll allow our departmental and campus leaders the opportunity to match their budgets with their strategies that are in their plans. Some of the advantages of the zero-based process include the increased accuracy of data, the efficiencies that are associated with the expended funds, reduction in wasteful spending, and nobody wants to admit that there's wasteful spending. I would hate to admit that there's wasteful spending in my personal budget, but my wife would tell you that there absolutely is, and she would be right. But it's also an opportunity for increased communication and learning opportunities for the staff and stakeholders. There are some disadvantages associated with it, as there are with everything. There's going to be a lot of time required to properly implement. For staff to learn the process, gather the necessary data, and then also evaluate that data. But how can you judge the efficacy of a program if you don't have data related to it? One of the worst things that school districts do is there is not typically a process for systemic abandonment. And what systemic abandonment is taking a pointed look at what you're doing and moving things along that A, you're either not doing anymore, or B, you're not doing effectively. It's not accomplishing the objective, whether that's a literacy program or a piece of curriculum, or planned purchases for athletic equipment that we're not actually using. So it's easy to add expenditures. We know that, but we've got to take a specific and targeted look at those things that we can abandon. We may have a consultant service that we don't need anymore. We may have, it's all on the table, and we need to look at it. And it's as simple as this: are we using it, and is it effective? If we're not using it, we don't go to step B. If we are using it and it's ineffective, we don't need to hang on to it. So I'm excited. Again, it's going to take a lot of work. But I think it's important that we do it. It's absolutely critical, because we don't know the number of students that are going to show up. With state funding is, we feel like we're good in this biennium, but guess what? We're halfway through it, and if they do hold true with what we've been promised regarding the second year of the biennium, that's great. But then there's a brand new legislative session on the horizon, and we know that everybody has faced challenges. So it will be a worthy endeavor, I'm certain.
In the process of zero-based budgeting, I think the goal also is to change the mindsets of the way we budget systematically. And there is a mindset of, that's the way we've always done it. It's pervasive in education. I'm not saying that's the way it is here, but the zero-based budget will force us to make true trade-offs. And when you are zero-based budgeting, it's about, I'm going to say yes to this because I have data, and I'm going to say no to this. You can do anything, but you can't do everything. And it's forcing us to change the mindset of the way every CEO in the district. There are several CEOs. There's CEO of a cost center in child nutrition. There's a CEO of a cost center in transportation. There's a CEO of a cost center in technology. There's a CEO at every campus, and forcing them to really look at through the prism of, every allocation must be essential versus, hey, yeah, we've had that program like Mr. Baum said, and let's keep rolling. No one's asking about it. No one's asked for any data about it. And so it forces us to really start to have that mindset shift. So that is exciting. That is exciting.
No, Dr. Prig, you're certainly correct. And committee members, are there any questions, comments regarding the zero-based budgeting approach?
I just have.
Ms. Prado?
I just have a comment. I'm excited. I think this is long overdue. Not only the zero-based budget, but the looking at the programs that this district has implemented in instruction and curriculum and other areas that have never been evaluated. Usually after the first year, you have some sort of data, and then you bring it and say, okay, is this something that's working or not? And if it is, maybe we need to renew it. If not, then we need to just not continue with it. But that's never happened. So I'm excited to see that, because there's a lot of programs. I was going through all my documents as I was trashing out. And we have this program. Nobody's ever bought any data. So there's a lot of programs, I bet you, that are out there that either are no longer being used, but they were never presented to the board with any kind of data, and maybe they're just left in limbo. So I'm glad to see the cleansing that's going to happen.
Yeah, and if I can kind of second some of the things that Mrs. Prado is saying, I think that this is a really great opportunity to hit the reset button on the way that we're handling our budget, and to ensure that we're being good stewards of our taxpayers' dollars. And especially given the very new way that we're probably looking at having to do school into the future, maybe it's a great opportunity to make sure that the things that we are planning on paying for will continue to pay service to our students and our teachers moving forward.
There it goes. Good to go. Okay. Yes. No, I definitely think that we're hitting center mass here with this approach on a zero-based budget. I anticipated us doing some of this last year when we had the budget process, but I'm glad that it's carried over into this budget process. And certainly, Mr. Baum and Dr. Puig, you know, if you guys need me to bring you coffee and donuts or something here on Sunday morning, just let me know, because I definitely want to support all the work that's going to be required to get this done. So I'm excited about it, just like Ms. Prado mentioned, for us to identify some inefficiencies possibly, and maybe reallocate some resources. And you know, it's certainly something that I've always asked when items have been brought to the board for consideration about allocating resources is, you know, is this going to work, and how effective is it being, and are we getting a return, right? With the return being great student outcomes, you know, for our kids. So I'm excited about it, and I look forward to see all the good work that's going to result from it. So I appreciate that, Dr. Puig and Mr. Baum. Thank you. And kudos to Ms. Sendejo, because again, she has her team, the entire team behind her to this point has done a lot of that work. So we're definitely excited about it. So no more questions on the 2020-21 budget discussion. So we'll move on to item number 3, the special funding discussion. Dr. Puig.
We've got several agenda items that are kind of rolled into this. Special funding is obviously we'll talk about the COVID-19 impact. We'll talk a little bit about the FEMA reimbursement, the coronavirus relief fund, and then anyway, I'll go through it. Yes, sir. Thank you. Yes, sir. So first off, I want to talk about the Corona Relief Fund. And we've got 3 buckets of money, 3 buckets of opportunity. They're not going to give us the money unless we ask for the money, but there is the Coronavirus Relief Fund. There's also the FEMA, and then the ESSER. And we will actually apply for those in the order of FEMA first, CRF or the Coronavirus Relief Fund second, and then the ESSER monies. But all the way back to the very beginning of the COVID crisis, Mr. Doucette, Ms. Claudita, Ms. Seaman, as well as it relates to staffing, we have been tracking those expenditures, and there's a myriad of ways that you can do it. But it's important that each district, regardless of the method that they choose, that they be able to identify those, because if you don't identify them, you can't properly submit them for reimbursement. And that is, the reimbursement process is a work in progress. As I mentioned, the TEA training that was given this morning and extends into into tomorrow, we'll continue to learn on that. But the Coronavirus Relief Fund is administered by the governor's office, and it is designated for state, high population county, and city uses. Obviously, we as a school district qualify for that. And the way that reimbursement works is that they will reimburse us up to 75% of the costs that we have incurred, with a limit of $50,000 per entity, or $250 per comp ed identified student, our state comp enrollment. And we know that we have a high state comp rate. We have estimated in our template about 8,000 students. So the most that we could be reimbursed would be 75% of that, or about $1.5 million. As we have looked at our expenditures, we had a pretty significant laptop expenditure, Chromebooks, if you will, that we purchased when we first went into this. Our technology team and our procurement team went to work, reached out, found those, got those in as quick as they could. We spent over $400,000 on that. And then we also had laptops that we put on order. They were a little bit more in critical supply, but they will still qualify for reimbursement. And our hotspots that we had to get for those students that didn't have full technology access. The question has come up about food service and some of the expenses associated with that. As it is written, there is some relief there for meals that were served out of the norm. So we know we'll see some reimbursement. I apologize for not having exact amounts, but again, it's a work in progress that we continue to calculate. So the Coronavirus Relief Fund is one method of reimbursement. FEMA is a lesser amount, but y'all authorized premium pay for a select group of employees that worked through the crisis. Those dollars that we paid out in premium pay should all be reimbursed through the FEMA process. I would just maybe a slight cautionary tale on that is those national reimbursements amount, or those federal reimbursement amounts associated with the disasters, they are often synonymous with the name disaster, and the money does come to bear, but it can take an extremely long time to get that in. And there's a lot of moving parts there, but that is a direct federal reimbursement, whereas the Coronavirus Relief Fund and the ESSER monies are actually filtered through the state, and our state is much better about getting the monies to us. And it's a big system, obviously. So not to disparage them, it's just to let the board know it may take those monies a while to come in. And it is very possible that we will not see some of those monies even in the 2020-2021 budget year. And we'll know that they're coming, but they will be slow arriving, I feel like. As far as the ESSER monies go, that is the biggest pot. That is the $2.6 million that we know we will get. We talked about that at length during our last budget committee meeting. I've given you a list. I won't go through all of the methods by which we can use the money. It is very, very flexible. If it is supporting educational operations, we should have no problem getting a reimbursement for that money. The problem is, as I mentioned, there's going to be a direct offset of student ADA. And so it won't be new money. It will flow to us, but we're going to see a reduction in our foundation school program monies. So as we look at that and strategize as to how we file for that, we'll want to get the money in as soon as possible in the most efficient way that we can. And it is likely that we will recode a selection of employees. Has nothing to do with their duty, but we will code as many employees as possible to that code so as to get the $2.6 million back as quick as we can. And then we'll count on the Coronavirus Relief Fund and the FEMA monies for reimbursement of those expenses that were truly associated with the disaster itself. So there's a lot going on. There's a lot of people working on that in a lot of different areas. It's really touched every shop in our organizations. We try to figure out what that looks like. And I am super, super, super appreciative of the staff that we have and the work that they do on that. What questions can I answer related to those funds?
Board members, I'm sorry, committee members. I'm not muted, am I? Okay. Committee members, are there any questions?
Questions.
Ms. Prado?
Mr. Bama, today there was an article in the paper speaking to the CARES Act and the monies that we're going to be getting, the stimulus money. And I kept hearing yourself, and I think Dr. Gropel or Dr. Gilcrease saying that it's not new money. And I think I get it now. In the article where Brian Woods, the superintendent, is a lot of superintendents are upset because their thinking is that this money that we're going to get, they're telling them, or they're telling the districts that you may not get the funding that you thought you're going to get. So this CARES money that you're getting is going to be your funding. So I'm assuming that is why it's not new money. That's what's going to make up for the shortfall of the funding we're supposed to be getting.
That's correct. It's a hold harmless in the truest.
It's a hold harmless in the truest sense of the word, and that they will ensure that we were made whole, as opposed to we talked about indexing based on last year's 5th and 6th weeks and applying the same trend. The trend is going to look completely different this year than it did last year, and this is an attempt to make us to hold us harmless. There is a very small component of that. 90% of that will go. 90% of the statewide monies as I understand it, will go to holding those schools harmless in the foundation monies. So there's about 10% that the state will have that will be discretionary. And so we'll stay tuned to see, and we could get a small portion of that. And so if 90% of it is 2.7 million to us, and it just flowed through on a pro rata share, we're looking at, $270,000 that we would get. But I'm not projecting that. I'm just saying it would be a minimal amount if they distributed it in accordance with the way they're distributing the other
Yeah,
funds.
it's obvious Superintendent Woods is not a happy camper because now we're having to give to private schools if they're in your district, and he has the most private schools in his district. So out of that 11 million that they're supposed to get, he's not going to get much.
Yes, and we have looked into that. It's the private nonprofit sector, and we are as visiting with Mr. Abundis earlier, and he has reached out to them, and we'll allow them. It's the same way with our Title I and our Title II funds. It's not something that we are unfamiliar with. We'll extend some professional development opportunities. They're very small, and they've got a mission that it's often easy to sympathize with, and kids are kids, and we want the kids to be hard. We don't mind helping those.
Have they identified
instances where
any
we can.
private schools in our district? I didn't think we had any. We do?
Yes, we do.
We know how many?
Less than
What?
100. 100.
Less than 100 students.
Oh,
Less than 100. If you're private nonprofit, if parochial.
Oh, students.
Nonprofit.
How many schools? That's what I was asking.
Oh, school, you meant students. Sorry, I thought you meant students. I don't know in my head, but right, I'll provide it for you.
That are in our district, in South San District.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm surprised. I didn't think we had, if any, just a handful maybe. Maybe so, because I can't think of any, really. A lot of the Catholic schools have closed in our district. A lot of them. Mhm. Okay, thank you, Mr. Baum.
Thank you, Mr. Prado.
No,
Mr.
just
Roscoe?
thank you for warning us that was coming. It wasn't a shock when I read it in KVU. I said, "Oh, okay, I already knew that." So thanks for giving us a heads up. That's the way it was gonna turn out. It's not new money. It's more of a hold harmless
Yeah.
situation. So appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Roscoe.
Thank you, Mr. Roscoe. Was that the entirety of the special funding portion? Okay, gotcha.
I didn't have to understand. I actually have an additional set of documents that I gave Dr. May that I'll give you the Q&A about 45.
We printed that out. I'm having a hard time tracing down printers as to know where they are. I know where that stack is. It's on Miss Martinez's desk because I saw that it was up there. I'm going to give you the 25 pages and watch you take pictures with your iPad if you don't mind. Anyway, it might be good to have them. We can give them as parting gifts if nothing else. But
there's a stack of papers up here, Jeff. I can run down to you.
Yeah, it was initially about a 2-page document of FAQs on this coronavirus relief whole package, and it has grown to 25 pages. But TEA was kind enough to, as they've updated, they put the date that it's updated, so you can see what their understanding was at this point, and then when it changed, and it will truly corroborate my assertion that we do keep getting updates, because we do. There will be June 4th updates, there will be June 11th updates, and there will be June 12th updates as well. So I'll make sure that you have that before you leave, and we'll continue to update you on that.
Thank you for that, Mr. Baum. Certainly a lot of information, like you said, a lot of moving parts. So whatever we as a budget committee can do in support of that, Dr. Puig, certainly please let us know. Next item on the agenda is the health insurance plan update. Dr. Puig.
Thank you, Chairman Rodriguez. In this particular health insurance update, it looks like we're going to take a comparison approach with respect to contributions and premiums. And with that, Mr. Baum, you want to dive into some of that?
Yes, this is a particular section of our work, if you will, that I'm fond of and I feel like experienced in. We have an insurance committee that is comprised of several of a couple of our our staff members. Ms. Seaman is on that committee, but we have a pretty broad section of teachers from across the district that are on there as well. And I have always wanted to have that outside voice, voice of the users that express their concerns about the plan and what has gone on with the plan and what premiums are doing. And so I have actually just kind of been an innocent bystander to some of those meetings, and we have found this. If you are, and we know that our health plan makes changes each and every year. If you have been in our health plan for 20 years, it's a point of contention each and every year, because we know that healthcare costs are doing what? They're going up. Never have we seen them go down. Okay, we have never seen them go down. So you're sitting there, and each year you get a premium increase. Okay, and the district may give a raise, and it gets eaten by the premium increase. The district does a great job, and we'll talk about some of the specifics of it, that they have upped the ante as the years have gone by. But one thing about the district contribution, when it is made, it's a new high water mark. So you can't jump out and say, we got election money this year, we're going to raise it to $500, contribution. Because if you do that, you're committed to that from that point on. So I had mentioned this committee that we will want to increase our emphasis on the insurance plan. It's depending on what you roll in, it's between a $6 and $8 million enterprise, and I think it warrants a great deal of attention. But as I listened to some of those committee conversations, I just sensed a tone of what was going on, that they felt like the plan was getting worse and worse and worse and worse each year. I will tell you this, if you move to this district this year, after being in a TRS district last year, you're pleased as punch, because we do have a good health plan. Okay. And our health plan is more affordable than the TRS plan. But if you've never been on the TRS plan, you don't know that. You just know that it's not as rich. It's not as robust as it was the year before, because the plan design changes and it costs more. But that's the difference between somebody who's been here forever and somebody who's come from somewhere else. Because if you're new to our plan, you absolutely love it. So that being said, one of the things that we asked to be provided was just for some peer districts, and we couldn't get it on everybody, but we did poll these particular districts that are listed here, and this is a split between the employer contribution and the employee contribution. So you will see that South San Antonio, the district pays for 79% of the insurance costs for our employees, and we leave the employee with 21%. Okay. If you jump down to San Antonio ISD, they only pay 69%, and they hang the employees with 31%. Mr. Raskow, is this a clear?
I got a ship in the seat. Very.
And you look at Isleta, and they're not located here. They're out in far west Texas, obviously, but we were able to get information on them, and Mercedes and Harlingen as well. But Isleta pays 54%, and their employees pick up 46%. So I think that is a metric that we'll always want to watch. We're not always going to be the best. We can strive to be. Certainly won't settle for being less than that. But I think it's important to see what we fit in that realm as it relates to districts that we compete against for employees, for families. So just wanted you to see this, and this is not a piece of information that our employees have ever been provided. So we're not going to pound our chest and say, watch me, but we will try to give them some communication that will help them understand, because there will have to be some changes in our plan.
Really quick, Mr. Baum, on these on this data that you provided, these specific districts, are they comparable to us in the number of employees, or the number? How do we correlate?
They're all over the board. We're kind of a mid-size. There are a couple of districts that are similar to us in size. Certainly, Mercedes is, and Harlingen is a little bit bigger than us. San Antonio obviously is a lot bigger than us, and that's why we looked at it not just in dollars, but in terms of percentages. And there is a correlation. The larger the plan, the less they the less they pay, because just because you're self-insured doesn't mean your self-insured plan looks like somebody else's. And we've really got to leverage that and make sure that it's a good benefit for our employees. But the districts that are out here in TRS, yes, when it comes to health insurance, they're able to try to check, and they don't go through the gyrations of figuring that out. But our employees are better for us being in a self-insured plan.
Mr. Rodriguez, question.
Ms. Prado, yes.
Mr. Baum, I think this is good information, but I think we've always compared ourselves with our neighboring school districts to see where we stand, because we're always fighting for our employees and we need to be competitive. So this is good information, but I'd like to see where we stand as compared to Southside, to Harlandale, to Southwest, to Somerset. Where are we? Because those are the ones we're fighting employees for. So we need to be competitive with our neighboring districts. I'd like to see where we are as far as what contribution are they making as compared to what we're making. Because that's going to be important, because that's an instrument that can be used as a marketing tool to get these employees to come. You just said, compared to San Antonio, Mr. Rasco, those employees may think, gosh, look, they're covering more insurance than what this other district is. You know, I might want to go work over there instead. So it's a good marketing tool, I think. But I'd like to see how we compare with the neighboring districts here near us on the south side especially.
Absolutely. We'll increase the specificity and the granularity, Dr. Gropel, that we have that we have, and we'll get you more information. Ms. Seaman, I guarantee you, when she is talking to employees, that she touts the fact that we have a self-insured plan, and it is a game changer between those who have it and those who don't. And so we'll get more information, not just comparing us against other self-insured plans, but those that are in the TRS plan as well. One thing that the state has done as part of the District of Innovation process, they are, I don't know exactly where they are. I know there's a movement to get that opened up where the districts that are in TRS can opt out of it. And I think if that does fully open up, the TRS insurance system could become a dinosaur, and more people will be going to co-ops. But I appreciate the question. I appreciate the challenge, and we'll up our game with respect to the data that we give you. I removed a lot of our report just because I wanted to hit the high points, because it's, again, this is going to be an item that we're going to need to revisit, because we do renew our insurance plan with a new plan year of November 1. That's 136 days. I'm not always good with math, but I think that's about right. So we got a lot of work to do there, and y'all will see plenty of information on the health plan.
If I may, when do we start going out for bids again on insurance for employees?
Well, what we will do is, and we will ask you to act on the hiring.
I'm sorry, I was on mute.
Okay.
My question is, when will we start going out for bid again for the insurance for the employees?
Yes. The answer to that question is absolutely as soon as possible. As soon as we retain a healthcare consultant, that will be their first charge, is to begin that RFP process. They will visit with us and find out what our desires are. We have asked to not have just the same thing as last year, much as Dr. Puig's approach. And I'm not saying we're in a bad spot, because I think we're in a good spot with our plan. We may want to reshape some of the benefits. We may want to change our plan design. Those are all decisions that will be made before the market, and the components that they will remarket will be the plan design and the insurance benefits itself, the administration of that, the pharmacy benefit management program, and then the stop loss. So it's not going to be a one-stop shop, or it doesn't have to be a one-stop shop. You can get your plan benefit from one company, your pharmacy benefit from another, your administration from another, and your stop loss from another. And we'll make sure that we have a sharp pencil when we're doing that, position the district as good as we can. Because we can't just sit back and allow we can't control the market, but we can look for soft spots in the market and try to do what's best for our employees. There's a lot of great ideas that we can use with our health plan that'll benefit our employees.
Absolutely, I would hope so. Just a tidbit of information, because I know you've only been with us a couple of months. We had some really issues with our last insurance consultant, And I would seriously recommend that, and Dr. Gropel is very familiar because he was a part of the discussion. So I would try and get briefed on what's happened in the past and make sure that we don't have that happening again this year.
Yes, ma'am. You bet.
Thank you for that, Mr. Baum. Thank you for that, Ms. Prado. Next item on the agenda is the pending budget amendments and transfer discussion. Dr. Puig.
Thank you, Rodriguez. And as you noticed, I am passing the buck today as I am the new guy picking up on what's happened in the past. Professor Baum.
Yes, I apologize for the future dated document that you have here. This is actually part of your board packet for next week. That's released today. In fact, it's hot off the press. Not as hot as the TEA document, but nonetheless, it's still hot. So again, I mentioned this in our opening comments. We will ask you to approve this amendment. It is a budget neutral amendment. It's moving monies, and I hope that as time goes by, we have always called these amendments, and yes, they are amendments to the budget, but I hope we can begin to talk about this in terms of amendments and transfers. And I think amendments are when we bring additional monies from another source into the plan, and transfers are when we want to spend money. And yes, y'all approve the budget at the fund and function level, and that's why it's required when we make an functional transfer that we bring it to you. But we'll always try to quantify the cost of that, and you will see that this is a budget neutral amendment. The second page that you see with the blue bars on there is the proposed May 2020 budget amendment. You make me laugh without even saying anything. You'll see in the left column the functions that are affected, and then in the description it tells you exactly what it's for. I'll hit the high points on these. When we begin a budget year, we are anticipating what expenditures are going to be, and we try to place the money in the best spot that we can, and we will get better at that. We know that. We know that we have had to ask y'all to move some money interfunctionally because of the way personnel was budgeted. We've got that issue resolved. But there are some expenses in function 41, a couple of things. We hired a new superintendent. We had a superintendent prior. We've got a new superintendent. We had to move some money into that function to take care of the remainder of expenses for this year. We had an interim superintendent. She did a phenomenal job. I don't mind saying that in front of her. But so the monies that were in place were spent. We've had some, myself as a consultant, when we began this budget year as a district, we didn't know that I'd be sitting here today. So we have to make provisions for things such as that. We had a meeting that it was actually several of actually all of the budget committee members sat through this week, and we listened to some of our personnel about some challenges that they had in performing HVAC and roofing services. And so we have talked about the monies that we had available, and man, I still get kind of cold and clammy when I think about projecting what fund balance is going to look like. But try to be as open and transparent as we go. But we felt that it was important that we recommend an amendment to place $150,000 into our HVAC budget that will allow us to freshen some systems immediately in anticipation of the school year, and then $100,000 as well for roof projects. We know that that's not enough, but that will give them the leeway to work within their departments to fix the things. And I think they have a pretty good handle on what those challenges are that they will tackle immediately. And my hope is that we will continue, this is a transfer in the current budget, but my hope is that we will get some monies in place in perpetuity that will be there, because we know that we've got challenges. We've got, part of the charm of our district is our age, and our older buildings are actually old enough to be cool. I mean, it's neat to have some of these older buildings. But it costs money to keep everything up. So we will ask you to amend and transfer those dollars so we can get to work on those projects immediately. We have a line item on here for legal fees as well as part of our ongoing school council. And just different items within the budget for transfers. And I'm happy to discuss any of these with any level that you would like.
Thank you, Mr. Mom. Committee members, any questions?
I'd like to make a comment, Chairman.
Dr. Quigg?
Chairman, this is exciting. I'll tell you why. This portion of these budget transfers have been discussed previously. But one particular transfer here, that is respect to the maintenance transfers that came out of Monday's meeting. And I think it's important to note that, a budget is truly dynamic and responsive. And the other day, we had a wonderful meeting with some of us in the room here, with some maintenance folks included. And what is satisfying is the responsiveness to their needs that impacts our children. And so when we see a budget that reflects the needs from the folks that are boots on the ground, that means a lot to all of us. So thank you all for understanding the depth, making this budget really driven towards the needs and the responsive and having the responsiveness that our staff feels a gusto, they feel good that we're listening and prepared to act and get things done. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Quigg. Committee members, any questions?
And I'll kind of add on to that what Dr. Quigg just said, and be sure to thank the staff for coming to us and being willing to be vulnerable and to make some hard ask. And it's our job to listen to our staff and find out what they need so that they can do their jobs. And I hope that they know that we really do want to understand what their needs are so that we can take care of our kids and our facilities and our staff. So thank you for that.
Absolutely, sir.
Thank you for that, Mr. Wasco. Ms. Prado?
Yes, on the line item on the second page, Mr. Baum, under the transfer from function 11 for HVAC and roofing repairs, is this something other than what was discussed the other day?
We index those amounts a little bit higher, and as I listened and recorded the asks, I know that there were several HVAC projects that were between 40,000.
It's 45.
I'm sorry. There were, as I listened and recorded the other day, there were several HVAC projects that were between $40,000 and $45,000. I may have gotten lost in that a little bit.
Right.
But I think that $150,000 should cover the projects that we talked about. But I'll ask the money back. I'm not going to use it. Okay. And then on the roofing project, we know that there are projects that were mentioned and then others that were not mentioned. We just want to make those resources available. And again, if the money is laid out and is not used, I mean, we've got a short budget year that remains. Honestly, we've got all of July and August and a little bit of June. We know that there's a lot of work that's already planned, and our personnel are not just going to be turned loose on fix-it, because they also have maintenance items to do. But we hope that those are monies that will be well placed, and we would certainly appreciate your consideration approving that amendment when the time.
Thank you. Absolutely. I took, when they made that presentation, I really took good notes. I listened to everything they said, all the amounts that they quoted, including the chillers. What was not discussed was the the bottom portion that had to do with the asphalt, with the Dwight lighting, with the ceilings. Those were not discussed. They're on the list, but they were not discussed. But I think they're doable. Those items alone came out to almost $656,000 or $556,000, just for that last layer of items that was on that list. So that I did a tabulation, and I just shared it with Dr. Quigg. Actually, the total with the estimates that were given to us on the HVAC units and on the chiller, and also on the lightning rods for the chiller, which were $3,000 each, and then the $45,000 for the HVAC units. The roofs, Mr. Coronado didn't say how much. He said it wasn't that much. On the way out, I was able to catch both Mr. Estrada and Mr. Coronado in the hallway. They were leaving, and I said, thank you so much. We didn't get to ask you on the estimate on the roofs, and they actually said it could range anywhere from 5,000 to 15,000 on those roofs repairs that need to be done. He did say in our meeting that the CTE roof issue was not an issue. We didn't have to list that. So if you add 15,000 for the other 4 units, roofing repairs, you're looking at another $45,000 or maybe more, maybe 60. So we're looking at, if we want to do everything that's on that list, because I think that was our goal, was we're going to have to show the community that we have that trust and the commitment to get some work done at each of the campus. You're looking about $799,000, which I think is, compared to 7 million, I think that's doable. And as we discussed about the funding, you know, we've got that workman's comp and we have the tax subsidy fund. It's not going to cover all of it quite, but we know that in August, we're going to get another payment for the tax subsidy fund of $485,000. So if it's not enough from the 700,000, which is 500 from workman's comp and 200,000 from subsidy fund, we can always take the rest of it from the August payment if need be. So I think, and that's just a transfer, just like you have it here. This is perfect. It's a transfer from tax subsidy to Function 81 and from workman's comp to Function 81. That's how the amendment should be. That's how it's been in the past. That's how it is now. And I think all the work that's been done by these gentlemen to come in and give us estimates. And I think in fairness to the children, we owe them to do as many repairs as we can and to do them now. That's my opinion. I think if we have the money, we should do it. Let's not wait, because if we wait, it's going to get worse. I mean, let's just take a bite of it now and let's do what we can now with what we have and then plan for the next year. And I agree with you. We need to budget in that 81 function for next year to continue to do whatever repairs we need for the other facilities. But we have to start now. We cannot wait. We have to start now. And I appreciate, I know we're getting a facility study. I think that's awesome. I don't know when it's going to come, but I think based on that study, maybe we would have taken a bite out of what they're going to be recommending, and therefore the cost may not be as much. You know, we've already started the process. So I know we're going to have amendment coming to the board, and these are some of the amendments. Is that correct, that are coming?
This is the May 2020 amendment that has been requested at this point.
Okay, is this coming to us at the June meeting?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. It'll come to you Wednesday night.
Or maybe we need to take a look at the amount there on that facilities and see if maybe we need to adjust that so we can make these repairs that are needed. Okay. Dr. Quigg, you know, that's between you and Mr. Baum, but we got to start someplace, I think.
I concur. There's an urgency to get the facilities up to par. And I think what we need to do is just to start the list and go down and get things done. And the good thing, this amendment here does allow for several of these projects to get started
Right.
pretty quick, as we talked about on Monday. So we are ready to get after it. I concur with Mr. Baum. You know, I'm going to use the words enthusiastic urgency to get stuff done. And we're going to be uber strategic with the funds to make sure it happens. And we know that at the Wednesday board meeting, we're going to look at alternative funding mechanisms. So we don't have to dive into all the fund balance or a large portion of it. So we're flexible to get stuff done faster by having other mechanisms to get some of these projects knocked out.
Absolutely.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, Dr. Quigg. And I just, you know, I agree. We've had these discussions before. There's a lot of needs across the district from a facility standpoint that we now own, right? That we are now charged with addressing going forward. So I think the discussion is good. I think let's identify, you know, like Dr. Quigg and Ms. Prado has said, and Mr. Baum, and certainly thank you for affording those gentlemen to come in and participate in the meeting the other day, so we can have some of those discussions and get a better understanding of what those actual needs are. But certainly looking forward, us formulating a game plan that would start with that more current facility assessment from TASB, and let's see what that's going to look like and what we can do every budget cycle to address some of those needs, right? And I'm excited about the additional funding mechanism that you're looking at bringing forth, so we can pursue some of those repairs that are needed. But you know, like we also mentioned that there's some of that low hanging fruit that we can go after. You know, I think but we'd be remiss to say that, you know, if these, I understand that the items that were shared at the budget committee meeting that day was a 5-year-old assessment. I get that, but nonetheless, it was presented to us. So, you know, if it's brought to the attention at the board and budget committee level, then, you know, we have some sense of obligation to attack some of that. So what that winds up looking like ultimately is probably, we'll put that piece together as we move forward, but it's not to say that we're not in the know and that we're not concerned and that we're not owning it to get it done. So I appreciate all the collaboration, all the discussions, and we'll certainly get it done. So yes, sir. Any other questions or comments?
Just to kind of fill you in on the facility assessment, we were scheduled to start in March. Obviously, with the COVID outbreak, that's been pushed back. TASB has some very specific guidelines that they're following in relation to this. So I actually do have a kind of a windshield tour with one of the representatives, and it's windshield meaning I'll probably have my Bluetooth on and tell him, this is Madla, this is Kazin, this is the other campuses over here. We're actually doing that on Monday afternoon, so more to follow on that. But the assessment, initial assessment was going to run from March to October, so that's kind of the time frame that we're looking at. So I don't anticipate viable information in a full scope until after the first of the year.
I want to add a follow-up comment.
I think that some opportunities exist in our district from an energy management standpoint. You know, certainly we have retrofitted thermostats. We have put LED lighting in a lot of places, and you know, just because an air conditioning unit is 20 years old and still functioning doesn't mean that it's efficient to operate. And you know, in the defense of our maintenance staff, they're basing their decisions on comfort for the people. There's two choices that result. They're either what? They're either happy or sad. The love or hate. Love or hate. Yes, thank you. Love or hate. And you know, we don't charge them with knowing the efficiency issues of old systems. And if you have a 20-year-old system functioning, it is quite possible to replace that and pay for it over a 2 or 3 year period just with our lighting. And it takes money to do that. But as Dr. Quigg mentioned in that meeting the other day, there are some alternative funding mechanisms. And you know, the $7 million was part of the plan. You know, that might not have been, and I don't know because I wasn't here. I've been around 5 months, not 5 years. But there are some efficiencies that we'll want to try to see. It's not just making sure that something is in good repair, but it needs to be operationally efficient as well. So we'll seek those opportunities.
Yes, certainly. I know. I think we all look at that within our own homes, right, to see how we can be more energy efficient, so the cost comes down when that bill hits your inbox. But certainly, I'm excited about that. Dr. Quigg, do we have a cost estimate on what that assessment is looking like?
So the total cost of the assessment is $63,000 over a 3-year period. So it's
Okay.
$21,000 annually. So the initial assessment will be the full blown, every nook and cranny, every pebble and every rock in the parking lot. The follow-up on 2 years will be if any renovation or changes are made, square footage increase, decrease, et cetera. Any roof repairs that are made, any HVAC systems that are replaced, and those will be put onto the assessment as well. The interesting thing about it, looking at when we had a video conference with them, I don't know the name of the system right off the top of my head, but it's a dashboard that we can actually share with board members. You'd each have your own unique username and password, and you can go in and you can look at the condition of facilities in your voting district, throughout the district, whatever. And you can do that by campus, by building. I don't think it breaks it all the way down straight to classrooms, but it definitely does by campus and building. So you can see, it'll tell you the air handler number, the serial number, the make, model, year it was installed, tonnage. It won't give you the water drain size pipe, but it'll give you a lot of information. Same thing with the roof portion of it. It'll tell you the total square footage, and you can actually use a cursor and pull information into that point. It'll tell you just an approximate section size, 30 by 28 in this area, and you can zoom in on that picture and kind of see the condition of the roof at that time, and then it'll give you the approximate square footage. It also takes real live RS means data and gives you an approximate replacement cost of that day. So, you've heard me say just kind of standard renovation now is about $210 a square foot. When you add HVAC or plumbing or major electrical into that, obviously the price goes up. Roofing is the same way. It'll give you that information right there.
I certainly appreciate that, Mr. Reset. I don't know if I need that type of level of, I certainly appreciate that, but we rely on Dr. Quigg and the team to bring to us whenever there are, in this instance, the list that was provided, just as an example, whenever there are those as determined and we have to allocate resources. But I greatly appreciate that information, though, but thank you very much.
Mr. Rodriguez, I have a question for Mr. Doucette, if I may, Dr. Quick. Mr. Doucette, all these whistles and bells that you're telling me about, is that included in the $63,000?
Yes,
So it's all included in the price?
all
So it's
included.
part of the assessment?
Yes,
Okay. And who's going to be responsible for monitoring all this?
At this point, myself.
Okay.
Eventually,
someone will be responsible for monitoring all these whistles and bells that we're going to have to make sure that everything is being kept up to date.
yes, ma'am. As I said, it's a web-based application, so you log into the site, and TASB will maintain the site.
Okay.
They'll upload the information into the system. We'll go in as users to look and modify as needed. I know this area handler is not at Korea, it's at Benavides or something like that. So we'll be looking at the data as well and monitoring and maintaining it as well.
Okay, good. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Quigg? Yes, ma'am, Ms. Potter.
So my wondering then, Mr. Ball. Mr. Bond has mentioned that he's been here for 5 months. I've been here for 4 days. And so a comprehensive review of our facilities is essential.
So my
Tools.
wondering, and as
Easy for, board members.
Mr. Baum, is my mic
Someone inherits.
working?
I've been through this, and so have you all. You inherit a district and you don't have a library, an easy way to really assess the facility.
Good.
I'm wondering if we
Hear
ever
me?
had a comprehensive.
Mr. Baum mentioned that he
We had a couple, probably in a bond, maybe perhaps.
before.
Yes, well, we were planning to do we were hoping to do a bond in 2010.
Had been here for 4
And
days.
actually had our architect do a needs facilities assessment.
And
It was
so
a big
a
spreadsheet.
comprehensive
It had every
review,
campus, the square footage,
uh,
how many HVAC
uh,
units, everything. I
so
don't think it was
it
detailed enough. I don't think
is
it said
essential.
the units are functional, they
Great
need to
investment.
replace. It didn't
Thank
have that. It was just giving you the detail of the facilities. But they did do
Having some
that.
tools.
But other than that, that's
really
the
make
only comprehensive facility assessment that I've seen.
And
And these tools.
it's easy for you. Turnover.
Right.
And so
It's exciting.
Yeah.
someone
Kudos to us, you said,
I've been through this.
I can say, sir,
Inherited district.
back researching the Veterans Memorial, did come across meeting minutes. So there was an assessment done in 2020 with GBA. And that was the binders that we currently have, or the information that was presented.
Right.
Assessments and
I'm wondering
everything.
if
And as you stated, it was comprehensive, but it didn't drill down into causes and effect or anything.
Did that assessment drive into that?
At that point, I'm not aware, sir. Again,
Probably during a bond?
No, I don't think so. The whole purpose was to, for the bond. We wanted to see what the needs were in our facilities because we were hoping that this bond would be, every campus would have some improvement. And it went very well. We had a committee. We had all the stakeholders, business people, teachers. We even had students there, community people, board members. Everyone submitted what they wanted to see for South San, what improvements. Even the campuses submitted, this is what I'd like to see at my campus. And everything was going well. And then TEA hit us with this investigation, and then everything came to a halt. So we never got the bond.
Thank you, Ms. Prado. Thank you, Mr. Baum. Moving on to item number 6, the CARES Act.
Mr. Rodriguez, I apologize, but I think 67 is special fund.
Gotcha, okay. So let me, so we can afford the, Dr. Flake, if you want to add any additional comments, or if the committee members have any additional comments regarding the CARES Act.
I will, I will.
Okay, yes, sir. Committee members?
Nope.
No? Okay. So we'll move on to the last item, the COVID-related expenditures and reimbursements. You touched on that. Okay. So I do have a question on that. Is when do we anticipate having those? You know, we know what kind of the major items were. When do we think we'll have more?
We are working on it. I don't want to make excuses. We have had an extremely busy meeting intense week this week, and we are putting that together. We're looking at the identifiers, and we'll get you.
Okay, great. No, I understand. It's a lot. I know, but we greatly appreciate it. Committee members, any comments on? Yes, Ms. Prado.
What is I'm assuming it's been done, what is the fund number for the tax subsidy fund? What's workman's comp, that's 753.
I do not have a fund number to give you. I apologize. I'm working with the auditors to get that, and that may, we have done our internal tracking to shore that number up, and we know what that is, and I can assure you that it will be in the audit, and we'll get it in there sooner if we can. It's going to take some doing.
Mr. The auditor.
I'm sorry. I have not.
Because he had, in speaking with him, we had the previous CFO trying to get some clarity. He had said, if Steph calls me, we can get them the number easy. That's something they can do for you. They have all the functions, they know what TEA requires. So you might want to reach out to Renee Gonzalez, with Garza Gonzalez auditors. Those are the
Yes, ma'am.
that did our last two reports.
Yes, ma'am. Our efforts have been in determining the right amount of money. And as you know, there were monies in there that didn't belong and monies that belonged in there that weren't in there. And Ms. Claudita and I spent time earlier, I guess it was earlier this week. I don't even know what day it is, to be honest. Looking at and diagnosing that transaction that would take to get that in place.
You did an awesome job on that report that you gave us, tracking everything, and I appreciated that.
Well, thank you.
I look forward to
We'll make sure it is where it is supposed to be. I promise.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Any final comments? I just want to end by saying thank you very much for all the work. I know your eyes probably get blurry. I hope that you do get better at math. Just joking there. But certainly, Dr. Puig, I know that there's a lot of transition going on here. A lot of meetings. Dr. Puig is in learning mode and trying to figure out what what's going on, right, and wrap himself around it. But I certainly appreciate the efforts today, Dr. Puig, and your availability. And, you know, I'm excited about the work that everybody's doing. So it doesn't go unnoticed, and certainly doesn't go unappreciated. So I greatly appreciate it. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn the
I have a
meeting.
motion by Ms. Potter to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
Second by Mr. Roscoe. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 5:29. 26, sorry, 5:26. Thank you everyone for attending. Have a good rest of the day.